Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Be Well Together podcast. It's Sheila Webster here, and I am with Riley Thompson. Hi, Riley.
Hi, Sheila.
We love talking about travel here on Let's Be Well Together. So I'm excited to be able to talk to you about Prague because you have been there, Riley.
Yes, I have. And I'm super excited that you guys went. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about it.
Yeah. So when did you go?
I went, I think it was about 2 years ago now, and I was on study abroad in Ireland.
Oh, okay. So you went with with other students?
No, I went by myself, actually. It was on our reading week. So during the reading week, obviously everyone can do what they want. I had a couple friends who decided to do a more extended trip around Europe. So they went to Germany and the UK and a bunch of different places. And I stuck to just Vienna and Prague for the week.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So tell me about your trip and then I'll kind of add our story as well.
Well, I don't know where to start. I mean, I tried to split it evenly, like throughout the 7 days between Vienna and Prague, but it was hard to do financially just because Vienna, I realized, was much more expensive than Prague. But I'm so glad I went to Prague when I did because it wasn't super crowded. Like, it wasn't super touristy. It was as touristy as you would expect it to be. But I was there for, I think, 3 days maybe. So I only caught a glimpse, really, of what there is to see in Prague. But I managed to make my way over to the palace. I don't remember how to pronounce it. I think it's the Lobkowitz Palace across the bridge. And I checked out the clock tower, which was amazing. And that's when I was staying in a hostel at the time. So it was a little more close quarters. But
Yes. I actually ran into some people who were staying at the hostel right by the square there. So right in Old Town Square by the clock.
Oh, really? Yeah, mine wasn't that far away, actually. It's probably like a 5-7 minute walk from my hostel to the Old Town Square.
Yeah, I found Prague incredibly walkable, which was very nice. It was more touristy than I was expecting it to be. There were times that it was quite busy, especially in Old Town, which is kind of where the touristy area is, as well as the bridge. Charles Bridge is a walking bridge, so there are no vehicles. So there's just tons of people and tons of tourists and tours.
Yep, everyone's stopping to take photos, and you're not taking into account the buskers and everyone there too. So all the performers and the artists and the jewelers and the markets and just everybody on the bridge.
Yeah, but it was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, we took your advice. We did a lot of the things that were on your list. We actually got a Prague pass, which probably you didn't. So the Prague pass, which we've done this in London as well, and we actually did in Ireland too. So what you do is you go online and there's these passes that you buy, and John got a 3-day pass. I got a 5-day pass. And then there's tons of things that you can do with this. One of the things was actually free rail. You could ride the subway, you could ride the streetcars all for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you could. And then there's all these tours that you can do. And then you can go into the clock tower. And I went to 4 different towers actually. And yeah, there's quite a bit. Yeah, there's quite a bit to do. Sometimes you feel a little stuck with it. I've heard from people that they feel like they have to utilize it as much as possible. So that can be a little bit of a kind of a chain that you feel like you've got to do this. But we really like it because it gives you all these options of things to do. So yeah, so we went to the castle as well. Really love that. And we walked to the castle. I don't know if you did that.
Yeah, did I? I think I was maybe on the streetcar for like 5 minutes or something because I was a part of the tour at the time. But then I went back the next day. So I did both. But yeah, I walked there too. And it's pretty uphill some parts.
Yeah,
but it's,
for sure. Because it's at the very top of the hill. Yeah.
And it's not like a little hill. It's a hill.
Yeah.
More like a mountain, really. But
yeah, but it was absolutely beautiful and beautiful views up there.
Stunning views.
Yeah. So we actually did go to the symphony as well.
Oh, I wanted to do that.
Yeah, there was a lot of options to go to the symphony, and we actually went on a tour at the municipal house. And I assumed that the municipal house would be about government.
I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah. So we get there and it's actually more of a community center for the arts. But it's,
cool.
Yeah. So they have a lot of different groups that come in and perform there. They also rent it out for the public. They have public performances, even recitals and all these different things. And they have all these different rooms that they walk you through. And it was so beautiful that we decided to go back and see a symphony there. So
that's really cool. I don't remember ever hearing or seeing anything about that. But.
Yeah, we didn't hear anything about it either. It was part of the Prague Pass. So we were in that area and we were like, let's go. And it was one of the best things we did in Prague, actually.
Yeah? Yeah,
because the person who ran the tour was incredibly informative. Both John and I love the arts. We loved hearing about the arts. And they really promote their arts in Prague. And so they were talking a lot about the history and, the history of the theater and the history of the government. And it was just really informative all around. So I thought that was really cool. And then the next day we went to the theater. So we saw Vivaldi's Four Seasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was really fun. It's just a nice little different thing to do,
Yeah, for sure. As much as I love I've tried to do things that were outside during my time there because
Yes.
it wasn't quite winter yet. It was still like relatively warm for fall. So I tried to stay outside, but had it been colder, I would have loved to have done something like that.
Mm-hmm. We actually were concerned because of the heat. We thought it would be hotter than it was, but it was about 23, between 20 and 23. So that was really great. Because we stayed in an Airbnb and it did not have air conditioning.
Oh, did you know that when you booked it?
No, we did not know that when we booked it. And I think that's really common there. That
I think it is too.
A lot of places don't have air conditioning, but we did not know that. And it was fine. Like it went down quite chilly at night so you could sleep and it wasn't too hot during the day. So we were really lucky.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. So what about the food? What did you think of the food in Prague?
To be honest with you, I don't remember much of the food, but I remember it being like it was hard to find authentic Czech food, I found.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Prague was really good if you're, I don't know, if you want to try a little bit of Italian food or Swiss food. Like it's a good melting pot of a variety of different things, but I found it hard to kind of find the authentic,
Yeah.
type places that serve authentic food. But I don't know if you guys had a different experience than I did.
I just was surprised. It was very meat oriented. A lot of the food had a meat base, not a lot of vegetables. So I found that a little hard. But because we were at an Airbnb, we could obviously make our own food as well.
Yeah.
So, and someone told me that there wasn't a lot of grocery stores in Prague, but we did not have that problem at all. We could find food and cook our food. So that was really great.
Huh. Yeah, that must have been a bit of a different experience then, like being able to shop and cook for yourself while you're kind of on holiday.
And not only that, it was trying to understand the machine like you're going to buy. So we had a real problem trying to find regular water. A lot of the water was carbonated, but we couldn't read the label because it's not in English, right? And we just couldn't figure out what was carbonated. So then we thought we got it figured out. So the next time we bought that kind of water and it was carbonated the next time. So we were like, oh man. So that was probably, and just trying to figure out, because you can't read the label. So what's what? It was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy going grocery shopping and trying to figure that all out. The subway was awesome.
Oh, did you take the subway?
We took the subway a lot actually, because it was part of our Prague Pass.
That's true.
Right? So we took the subway, we took the streetcar. Did you see the Lenin Wall?
Oh, I love the Lenin Wall.
Yeah. So there's this like graffiti wall and it was quite old actually. So it kept...
From like the 60s or the 70s, isn't it?
Yeah. And they kept putting it up and John Lennon was the main picture that was there that someone would draw and then they draw all this other sayings and then it would get painted over. I don't know if you heard that, but it would get painted over and then like the next day it would be back up again and it got painted over and it would get back up again. And so they eventually kept it and people just keep adding to it. So you can actually write your name on the wall or write a saying or whatever.
Yeah,
so
it's a pretty massive chunk of wall. Like it almost looks like a vinyl record, almost the way it's shaped. It's Lennon's in the middle and then kind of everything like kind of is built around that. So it looks bright and vibrant and just fun.
Yeah, it is really fun. Yeah. And you can barely see Lennon anymore. Like he is so,
Really?
yeah, it is so painted over with everything, all these sayings and names. And yeah, so you
Oh,
really
wow.
have to look hard to find him. But that was
Huh.
that was a really, really interesting tour. So we did a few tours, and another one that I wanted to talk about was we did an underground tour. So I didn't really know what this was about, but as it turns out, there was a flood, a few floods actually, but a major flood in Prague. And so they were having issues with the water level. And basically they just decided to build the city up. There's like 2 stories of Prague that got buried so that they could build it up, and built the roads, and they like did the infrastructure so they could build it higher. So there's like 2 layers underground that kind of just got built over.
Whoa, I did not know that. That must have been really cool.
It was really cool. So we go down, and then they're talking about all the, like, it's really neat because you actually see how people lived thousands of years ago. There's like Gothic walls, and there are Roman walls. Like they're kind of explaining the different structures, and there were jails and cellars. And yeah, so they'd show you where they tortured people, and like, because they'd get tortured and then they would be killed out in the, outside. So it was really quite interesting and so authentic. Like, wow, so preserved.
Yeah. You know what? My parents actually just came back from their holiday a couple weeks ago from Greece, where they were there for whatever it was, 10 days, I think.
Mhm.
And they did a lot of tours that were similar to that, like sort of underground, or even if they weren't underground, you're just walking through like thousands of year old communities where you have like the tiny little huts and houses. You could see doorways. You could see they still had like the frescoes on the floor painted with tiles, and like just the way it's preserved is just, I don't understand. I can't wrap my head around how it works.
No, I know, because Canada's just so young, right?
Yeah.
Like we're just so young that we don't have this history. And so it is really, really cool to see it there. They were talked about the buildings and the architecture and the structures. They really enjoyed their art, their architecture, and their statues. So they talked a lot about them and knew a lot about it and their history. So that was probably the thing I was impressed most with. But yeah.
I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah. But I absolutely loved it. And thank you for all your tips on travel.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. I'm glad you guys had such a great time, whether or not you did anything on the list. Like,
we
there's
brought
just
it.
so much to see, right? Like, I gave you just such a short list compared to the number of things that there is to see and do there.
Yeah.
So,
No, it was great. Thanks.
no problem.
We are done.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is in the category of spiritual wellness, and the theme is noticing common ground. I'm speaking with Karen Redman. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's so nice to see you. It's been a while.
It has.
I could go on at length about Karen's background because she has an extensive background in politics and active community involvement. She's currently regional chair of Waterloo Region, which is a busy and thriving region. She also happens to be a friend who Sheila and I met when I was part of Rotary. I'll give a shorter version of her long list of experiences. Karen has represented Kitchener on the Board of Education, Municipal Government, and in Canada's Parliament for 20 years. She's committed to making a personal contribution to a better quality of life for her family, her community, and Canada as a whole. She has a master's degree in political science, as well as an honors bachelor's degree in English. She's the recipient of the Queen's Jubilee Medal and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and I know her as a friend, with enjoyable get-togethers with her and her husband Warren. Karen's a mom with 4 adult children. And of course, they all love their Westie, Roxy. So Karen, I want to talk to you about spirituality, and you kind of have a unique perspective because you see so many people of so many diverse backgrounds. So let's start with you. Is spirituality part of your life?
It very much is, John. I was raised in the Christian tradition, Presbyterian, so not too exciting, but very firm beliefs. And Warren and I actually went to St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. I have always felt that my religion is deeply personal, and that in politics as well as life, you have to examine and do the best things for the right reasons. And I've tried to do that in my personal life, and I've tried to do that in politics. But being an elected representative since I was 36, which goes back a while, I would have to tell you, it has allowed me the ability to go to be familiar with other faith traditions, whether they're Hindu, Sikh, Jewish. And I've gone to the gurdwaras and the temples, sometimes after disaster, or sometimes acts of hate. And the community's been very good about cleaving together to say that we all want to support each other. So that's really been part of my faith journey in a way that's been deeply meaningful to me.
You mentioned that it's personal and important. Do you find that you have guiding principles that come from your spirituality?
Absolutely. And I also would tell you that when I've been able to be invited into these other faith traditions, what I find is there's so much more that unites us, and there's so much more commonality between different religions. But interestingly enough, our oldest daughter was 11 when I was a school trustee, and it was right at the time that we were talking about taking prayer out of the schools. And we were discussing it at the dinner table, and she put her fork down and she said, "Mommy, it seems to me that if you want your kids to read, you send them to school. And if you want them to learn how to pray, shouldn't you be taking them to church?" And I just thought, out of the mouths of babes, because it was a very difficult decision for me. I voted to take prayer out of the school. I think it was the right thing to do. I still do today. But it was a real test of my personal faith and what I thought was in the best interest of the community.
If you look at it from my perspective, so I'm personally not very religious. I don't adhere to any religion, but I like to be spiritual, and I like to try and figure out what that means in that context. And it's still very natural for me to talk to people of any religion. And some of the common themes are things like guiding principles and trying to figure out the right and the wrong things to do, supporting each other. And when he started the podcast, there was going to be an initiative to try and connect with people from all kinds of faiths. Didn't happen yet for practical reasons. It's just really hard to connect with some of these very busy people. And my idea was that we were going to find out that we had so much more in common.
Right.
Way more in common than things that divide us. And when you're going and meeting people of these different faiths, what are you finding in that regard?
So I very much would agree with you that your intuition was bang on. People want to be good to each other. They want to practice their faith and allow space for other people to. There's been a real rise of hate speech and acts of hate in our community, and that's not who we are, and it's not who we are collectively or as individual faith communities. I look at the people who have come to Canada, whether it's to seek refuge as a refugee or immigrated here. And one of the drawing cards of coming to Waterloo region is actually the strength of our faith community and how we support people from away and strangers. And there's a whole lot of secondary migration of people coming to Waterloo region because there are people with open arms and open hearts. And that's always made me very, very proud of Waterloo region. I grew up here, and it's much more multicultural, multi-faith, and much more diverse than it was when I was a kid. John, you spent a lot of time here. What do you think?
It took me having to move away before I figured out that it did have an impact. And so here's an example of having an impact of someone from another faith that affects not just me, but the community. But the classic example that people talk about in Waterloo region are Mennonites and the barn raising. For people who don't know, there's a large Mennonite community close by. As I understand it, either if someone has to build a new barn or if somebody's barn is being destroyed by, say, fire or something like that, the whole community gets together and replaces it, builds a new one together. And if you look at things like our innovation hubs and the way businesses work together and everything else, that whole mentality seems to have kind of permeated Waterloo region. And we love it so much because we get the benefits of it. We see how amazing it is. And we see how much support feels good to each other. So yeah, when I moved away, I realized that not all communities had that kind of sense.
And, you know, it's interesting when we talk about spirituality and faith, and to me, they're very intermingled. And again, that's me personally. I was the executive director, the CEO for Habitat for Humanity Waterloo region for 7 years in some of the employment that I did. Habitat for Humanity is a Christian-based organization, and yet the families that we partnered with and they helped build their own homes, and the community helped build those homes for home ownership for people who are working but living on the margins. We're every faith, every ethnicity. And that's what brought us together, was believing that people needed a hand up, not a hand out. And these people bought into it. So you didn't have to be Christian to participate, but those values permeates Habitat for Humanity Waterloo region. And it was a wonderful part of my personal career. I really enjoyed it. And we saw the transformation it made for families when you could come home to the same kitchen table your whole career, go to school with the same kids in elementary and high school, because it gave them that stability of home ownership. So those kinds of things are transformative. It's interesting. When I went to Parliament, I went to the prayer breakfast every Wednesday morning, and it was a wonderful way to meet people from all different parties on a very personal level. And it was very much sharing the motivations and the overarching ethics that we shared. Not everybody was Christian, but the vast majority of us were. And it was a wonderful window on the humanity that comes with being a member of Parliament.
We're talking a lot of the positive stuff, but I wonder if there's something else happening too. We do separate church from state in Canada. So do you find that people sometimes when they hear you're Christian, they kind of pigeonhole you and assume you're going to either believe something in a certain way, vote on an issue in a certain way? How do you overcome that? Like, how do you not let yourself be pigeonholed?
You hit the nail on the head when I'm knocking on doors, and there wasn't ever an election at any level of office that I ran for that somebody didn't say, "Are you a Christian?" And I would hesitate only because I thought if you're asking the question in the way I was perceiving it, you would say, "Oh, well, then you believe X, Y, and Z." And then, either we share the same values or we don't. And the reality is Christians are very diverse. It just made me hesitate answering that because I thought they're going to be disappointed because they've now decided that they know all kinds of things about me without sort of delving deeper to find out what I personally believed.
That really speaks to me. It's just so easy to assume that anyone of one particular religion thinks this on a particular issue. And again, we come back to this theme of noticing common ground. A long time ago when I studied philosophy, when I was trying to explain this to people, I distinguished something artificially between morality and ethics. All I meant by that, because they pretty much mean the same thing, but I said, well, think of moral as your own personal approach, your own personal beliefs. Think of ethics as the right thing to do together. I can do whatever I want from my moral beliefs, and you don't have any right to tell me anything about it. But from an ethical perspective, I do think we share a lot of common values, and we can decide how to live together and work side by side and build together with common values that maybe aren't exactly the same as your personal beliefs. I don't know if that makes sense when you're actually the regional chair.
I think back on my career, and again, I don't want to keep dragging politics into this, but in 2005, we voted as a Liberal government to bring in same-sex marriage. And it was hugely controversial. And I would tell you that it was a collision between morals and ethics. I looked at it as human rights and the fact that my husband and I, who will soon be married for 50 years, isn't that gobsmacking?
Congratulations.
Thank you. We were no less married if a gay couple wanted to get married. And, we all hearken back to the former Pierre Elliott Trudeau when he said, politics is no business in the bedrooms of the nation. And I really believe that it was the right thing to do. I still do. And I know that we were a bit of an outlier as a nation, and a lot of other, even states in the US have come along. And I had this couple come in and sit on the other side of the desk, and they were lovely. And they came from my neighborhood. They happened to be of the Catholic faith, but it's all Christian. And they said to me, "Mrs. Redman, you seem like a really nice person. We are so sorry you're going to hell."
Right.
And they meant it with all sincerity. And I looked at them and I said, "Do you know what? At the end of the day, I may go to hell, but it won't be over this. But I really do appreciate your empathy." There was not anger. It was sorrow that they were sharing that with me. And I know that was very, very difficult for a lot of people. I felt very firmly it was the right decision, and I still do.
Well, I don't think it's possible, especially in a 15-minute interview, for us to get too deep into that whole side of it. But I really do like the sentiment of, although you're influenced by your principles, you're influenced by your values and your beliefs, there's still room when it comes to living together to make decisions based on something a little bit different, something about how we all live together, how we can all respect each other's rights. And so, that's a very interesting story. And I think it's a good example of where you have a bit of a conflict.
And again, I always have empathy. I have always said to anybody that worked with me that everybody deserves simple respect. And maybe we're getting back to sort of the ethics that you're touching on. Hear what they have to say, treat them with respect, and be authentic and honest with them. And that's not always easy, but you have to really think through what your stand is. And I've never been somebody that just towed the party line because it was the party line. It had to be something that I had gone away and examined.
Okay, well, believe it or not, we're already burning through our time. Is there anything else you wanted to add about this topic, about noticing common ground with other religions?
I really wish that we would all give other people, especially post-pandemic, the benefit of the doubt. And my sense is that we're in an inflationary period. People are cranky. Some of them are worried about, their job, their finances, their family. So give people the benefit of the doubt when you either agree or disagree with them. And I don't think we do that enough. So I would hope that we would be a little bit more generous with people when we're talking about topics instead of seeing everything as black and white.
A little bit on that point, which is, so I'm not religious and I've studied a lot of philosophy. I think a lot. I've read a lot of proofs for and against the existence of God. This is a topic I've really thought a lot about. And ultimately, from a personal perspective, I think it all comes down to personal belief. It doesn't come down to logic. It doesn't come down to science. And so I just don't think it's very useful if you have a particular religion to try and push it on to everybody and make sure everybody follows your rules. So I guess that's me on a little bit of a soapbox.
You're allowed. It's your podcast, John.
Yeah, but I like the idea of talking to each other, and especially in a civil way. And when you realize I'm not going to jump onto the belief system that you have, still please talk to me in a civil way, because I'm going to do that with you. Okay, well, you may know that our show is about wellness, and we ask every guest the same question in a context where we have many areas of wellness, but never enough time to have them all going at any given time. So we do a little bit of a mini wellness check-in. So Karen, are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of even one thing you could do to foster wellness in that area?
I belonged to a Zumba studio for about 3 or 4 years before the pandemic. Unfortunately, the studio went online for a while, but was a victim of the pandemic and has since closed. So I need to find another Zumba studio because it made me really happy. And John, you know this, but my background is Italian. And we used to have all of these older, some married, some widowed Italian ladies at all the family weddings. And they would either dance with each other or dance by themselves. And as a kid, I thought that was so weird. So now I just legitimize that by going to Zumba, and I dance by myself with a bunch of other people in the same room. So I have neglected, I work out at home, which is what I did when my kids were little, but I need the incentive of going to a class. So that's sort of my fall project, is to find a new Zumba studio.
Well, my wife's a dancer, as you know, and I've never thought there's anything wrong with people dancing by themselves, because I see her and her friends dancing by themselves all the time. And also, I'm a really big proponent of finding physical exercise that you love, that makes you feel good, because then you're going to keep doing it. So I hope you find that studio. And thanks so much for your time, Karen.
It's been a pleasure, John.
We hope you're enjoying the show, and we hope you're finding ways to foster wellness in the categories that are important to you. If you like what you're hearing, head to our website, letsbewelltogether.com, and then to the archives page. It includes a quick summary of the different segments of all of our shows back to the start. Have a look and see if there's something interesting you want to listen to, and listen to one of our past episodes. It's me.
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
You were talking to Riley about trip to Prague, because both of us went there, and she did too. That made me remember that you had seen some article about why it's good for couples to travel. So let's get into it. So what are some of the reasons?
Yeah, I was hoping if I read these reasons to you, then you would want to travel with me more.
I want to travel with you a lot.
I love traveling, and I really, really think it's important in a relationship, but also just I want to experience so many things, and there's so much to experience. So I love to travel. So this article really inspired me. So there's 4 reasons why couples should travel together. And the number 1 reason is that couples are 7% happier in their relationship because they travel.
I'd like to go to the study thing and see the couple that was like 3% happier and figure out the difference between them and the one that was like 9% happier. How the heck do you measure that?
I don't think they ask you what percent happier. There is just, they probably get asked questions, these different groups, and then the computer puts it together and says 7% of couples. 7%. Our couples are happier in their relationship because they travel together.
I can see that. I mean, I'd love to travel as much as possible, but it's the possible. It's the hang up.
Yeah.
You have to work. You have to pay for it. It's expensive.
Yes, it's expensive.
But every time we go, we always have a great time and we come back feeling great. To me, it does enhance the relationship because now you have more memories.
Yes.
To throw in. I've said this before that when I look at you, I don't just see you today. I see you, and in the back of my mind, I see all these other memories of things we've done together.
Yeah, I know couples who basically say that it's a waste of money to travel.
Right.
That for 2 weeks, you're spending all this money, you go, it's done, it's gone. Whereas you could spend that money putting down on your mortgage or whatever, more sustainable things, and they feel like it's more worth it. But I totally disagree. I think that travel is so important, and it really does help your relationship. And that's probably one of the main things, that you have these little memories of being in certain places and doing interesting, funny, different things. And so when you're looking at your partner, you're remembering these things, or something reminds you of them. And it's just such a fond, happy memory that makes you happier.
Even if you're not remembering it overtly, it's just subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with those people. You know, at the end of the day, you hear this a lot of times from older people, and you always hear that expression, the guy in his deathbed, you know, he's like, I wish I worked more.
Yeah.
I wish I saved more for retirement. Like, they don't say those things.
They don't say those things.
And I more and more realize as I get older that it's all about experiences. And not just like routine, mundane experiences, but interesting experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth it to try and make every day have interesting experiences. Like, for example, look around and notice the things around you in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But for sure, travel is a fantastic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if we think back about things we've enjoyed doing together, many times there's travel associated with it.
Mm-hmm. Number 2, women who travel are less stressed, which makes their relationship better because they're less stressed.
I think that's fantastic. I just don't have any idea what to say, because if you're an example of a woman, I wouldn't understand why you like or do anything.
You don't understand women at all. Is that what you're saying?
I do not understand women.
Okay.
No, so I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I just don't know why it would be.
For me, in my experience, when you're on holidays, you don't have those daily chores. And I feel like I'm thinking of the children, of the groceries, of the cleaning, of the laundry,
Right.
of all these chores besides your job. So you just are less stressed.
Yeah,
so you
I get
come
that.
back and
Yeah. Because actually, I remember one of my bosses one time was saying, right now there's a glass of water in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So what he said is, look, you got to put the water down sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick up a glass of water, it's very light.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just keep holding it there hour after hour, eventually it becomes unbearably heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like what you're saying is, while you're away, you've just put the water down for a little while. And so the stress goes away and you're like a little more relaxed.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Number 3, 50% of couples have more love in 1 week holiday than 8 weeks of not being on holidays.
Okay. And like they have more love.
That's what it didn't
More
explain what love is, right?
But
So
we can guess.
we're thinking sex, like they have more sex on holidays, like 50% of couples.
But like, sorry, does that say like in what, did they say 1 week?
Yeah, they have in 1 week, they have more than 8 weeks not on holidays.
Wow.
Yeah, so more in 1 week than in 8 weeks, 2 months.
That tells me that a lot of people don't do much in 8 weeks.
But like the thing is that you are in a different place and you're together. You have no responsibilities. So you don't have to work and so you have more time. But I think you should make time in your relationship for love.
Okay.
So let's just leave it at that.
The problem is we could literally talk about this for hours, but I just took a look and we're actually running late. So maybe we got to burn through the last two, or should we save them for another one?
There's just one.
Oh, okay. What is it?
There's just one. 94% of couples who travel together feel closer in their relationship.
Yeah. And again, that to me ties in with this whole point about experiences and what you remember as a couple. And when I think back and I'm feeling those moments of feeling closer, it's not you and me getting ready in the morning and rushing off to work, although it is nice to say hi and have coffee before we go. It's the experiences that we did together. That's what makes me feel closer. And travel is just such an amazing way. It forces you to basically sit there and take in what's around you and have these experiences.
You like passport, Sheila.
That is true. Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Sheila here with Elise and John.
Hello.
Hey.
And it's a long weekend here in Ontario, and we are really enjoying the extra day off. I've had a very relaxing week this week, to a point where I'm just kind of talking slow and lazily going about my week. So that's really nice. We went to a nice birthday party on the weekend. I made some pulled pork. It was a 30th birthday party of a friend of ours. So that was lovely. Other than that, we've just been hanging at home and enjoying our extra day off. What about you, Elise?
Well, I am getting ready for back to school because school will start after this long weekend.
Yes.
Which is unbelievable. Summer just flies by. So this past week, we've been trying to enjoy our last week of summer by going to the beach, just relaxing, but also trying to prepare for the new school year. So I was back in the building at school, getting things ready to have a good start to our new school year.
I'm sure everybody's in that boat right now. We are not,
That's right.
But that's what everybody's doing.
Doing the shopping. Yeah.
Yes.
Getting everything ready.
Yes.
But I feel pretty good and I'm hopeful that we'll have a great first week back. How about you, John?
Well, my job is always busy and often stressful. And last week was both busy and stressful. So for the most part, I was in, I don't know, what would you call it? Survival mode. But having said that, it really does help. So there was a time recently where I couldn't walk to work. I was working from home a lot and it felt worse. But luckily last week I started walking to work again. And I think that helped because I was able to like tune things out when I wasn't at work and then try and get through a really busy day. And I found myself really tired at the end of every day. But what I'm doing right now too, which is kind of fun, is a few weeks ago, I was talking about how we cleaned out the basement and all that stuff. And then part of that made me think, okay, because I found some old hard drives and some old external hard drives, because I'm kind of a pack rat when it comes to computers. Before we kill the computer, send it off site, I do save the data, not knowing when I might need it someday. So I'm in the process now of trying to save the stuff that someone might want to see someday, as opposed to all the stuff nobody cares about. And that means I'm going through old files and seeing some pretty nostalgic stuff, which is fun. Pictures from ages ago or some document that reminds me of a story. So that's kind of fun. And it's been relieving me a bit in this stressful time. But that's it for me. It was just basically work, and try and stay chill when I could.
Well, you did have a nice little golf tournament this week.
Oh, I forgot all about that. Yeah. Like that's how busy I was, because that's one of the reasons I was so busy this week is because our Waterloo Region Law Association had a golf tournament and I had appointments out of the office in the morning and then the golf tournament. So I kind of lost that whole day.
Right.
So it was almost like a short week. But no, it was fun. I had a really good time with the guys I golfed with. And I used to golf regularly and I'm okay at it, like pretty good at it. But when you don't golf then for years, it's kind of like riding a bike, but not. So, but you get enough of the really good shots that you're like, oh, that was fun. And I was getting better as the day went on and hit some shots that were fantastic, including on a fairly long chip of about 80 yards. I hit the pin. So that was pretty good.
That is pretty exciting. Yeah.
Didn't go in, but it was good.
That's great. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will catch up soon. That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.